Okay, everyone. I foolishly bought several drinks for New Year's Eve that I did not drink, so now I have to drink them in this video because otherwise I'm going to have a bunch of beers taking up space in the fridge. So this is what's happening. Grab a drink. Let's see. Are we going to mess this one up? Oh no. It's a perfect pour. No one should have doubted me. I certainly shouldn't have doubted me. Cheers, everyone. New video. Alright, now I need to put the teleprompter on. Oh, for fuck's sake. I forgot to put the teleprompter on. You've seen it. YouTubers posting variations of the YouTube bad take and all sorts of hypotheses about why this has happened. It's a side effect of people relying on an opaque machine to make some portion or all of their living. I've watched a lot of videos. I have friends who are creators who have made these same observations, and you're probably tired of hearing about it. Unfortunately for us, it is relevant background, so you're just going to have to hear about it one last time. But I'm not going to go into the details of what happened and who came off sounding out of touch with their responses. It's safe to say that every position, from get good all the way to hey, this is people's livelihoods and maybe dependence on an opaque machine that never tells you why something is happening, isn't stable, or creating a healthy relationship between artists and their art, has been taken. My friend Bridget Empire did a good video about all of this that also directs you to another good video about this by Pillar of Garbage. I recommend both, mainly because I'm not going into that whole side of it. That side is more about people who are in this sort of strata of YouTuber who, for whatever reason, rely on this platform for their livelihood and have audiences large enough for, does the algorithm show you on your subscribers' homepage to actually matter? That group of YouTubers who, for me, give the platform the sense that it has enough about it to be sustainable. One side effect of all of the YouTube bad videos, especially from this sort of forgotten middle, I guess we'll call them, is it does make you wonder about the viability of a platform that can't be relied on by those people who do need something from it to survive. It's just one of these things that reminds you not everything is permanent on the internet. And in that way, I'm lucky. I don't rely on YouTube to make my living. I have a day job that lets me pay my rent and basically do whatever I want, which meant that when I ran into some issues of my own, which we'll get into because that is kind of the point of the video, a lot of my friends sort of didn't get it. Both friends who weren't YouTubers and friends who are, from completely different angles. In a sense, I get that my position in a lot of ways is enviable, especially to that forgotten middle of artists on this platform, because I can do whatever I want, and honestly, my job has conditions that are perfect for doing this on the side. So I did get a sense of, well, what are you complaining about from basically everyone? And we'll talk about this as well. But it made me really think about why I do this. Also, it made me reconsider how I view what I'm doing here and what this even is. Because I've never thought of myself as a creative person. But I guess, in a way, what I make is art. And a few years ago, I would have recoiled at that notion that I am an artist, or that I make art, or that I'm creative, or anything like that. This video is about how I, as a sort of hobbyist amateur, relate to the things I make on this platform, and how that's changed, and how I felt about other people's work, including through the recent algorithmic shifts, and how it feels when how far you can get is mediated by a machine that you can't and aren't allowed to understand, how it brought up some very ugly thoughts and feelings in me, and how I pulled it together to carry on, because honestly, I came pretty close to just deleting the channel. And that's not me being dramatic or anything, I just nearly called it quits just over in November. So yeah, I'm going to have a bit of a vent, actually, and let you all know what it's like on this side of the camera when nothing ever seems to go your way. Not to sound like every single song from the 2000s, I realize is how that's coming off. Right, let's do it. November was a bit of a weird month for me. If you're a subscriber, you might have noticed that I didn't release a video in November despite promises that I would. At least once a year, I find there's a month where I just, for whatever reason, take a break. It's usually January or April, which is the month when my birthday is, just because we all have ups and downs, and trying to force yourself to create something is a recipe for creating something that you don't like. And I've got far too many videos that, independent of how YouTube and the algorithmic mediation impacts how I feel, I just think I could have done a better job on them if I'd given it 2 more weeks. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll go back to them, actually. That's not necessarily the worst idea, to revisit some stuff. So what happened in November? First, in the second half of November, I was just ill. And I don't know if that was from the strain of mega flu that was going around the UK, and given that I'm not sure, I'm going to say that it wasn't that, but it was probably the most ill I've been for a few years, which means I didn't feel much like feeding back into a system that I felt had cheated me a little. I did post about being ill, and apparently some people appreciated me being open about it, and I do want to say that I am human like you. My health, it goes up and down, and sometimes it does that a lot more than I let on, and that you could possibly know, because I don't tell you every little thing. And I'm lucky, again, that my job lets me have sick leave. I have paid sick leave, and there wasn't a need for me to put out a video to pay my rent. Sickness is no joke, and one of the greatest strains of paranoia you see about the algorithm, which we almost treat as if it's a capricious deity, is that if you take breaks, it punishes you. So this sickness was almost like doubly frustrating, because I felt as if I was being consistently, for a long period of time, punished compared to other similarly sized channels. And the only solution to that, the way to break out from that punishment, was being denied to me by my own health failing me. And I recovered, of course, and I am generally quite healthy, but when you're in this mindset that I entered at the start of the month, it can make you feel even worse, because you feel even more helpless than you already are. The other thing that happened that made being ill worse was the 2 videos I put out in October did absolutely dog shit. Now, this is not a fashionable, cool thing to say, because what you're supposed to say is that no matter what kind of creator you are, what you're supposed to say is this, right? The numbers don't matter, it's about making what I want, which is really the only way you can keep on doing this in any kind of sustainable way, or any creative pursuit. But that's not how it felt at the time. For whatever reason, I thought it really mattered, regardless of what you're supposed to say or feel. There's only so many, I guess that one didn't work, or the audience who got to see it liked it, that you can take before something somewhere snaps. And I snapped. The 2 videos I released in October were 2 of the worst performing videos I've ever done, at a time when I had more subscribers than I've ever had before. And it wasn't even like going back to square one. It was like going back to square minus 50 or something. I remember I released it, and I had 3 days off work that came just after it came out, right? So I could just spend some time with myself and relax. And it didn't exactly go like that. I crashed out quite badly. Bad enough that I actually brought it up in therapy, which I guess is also a part of that process. I would go out and just do whatever I needed to get some degree of comfort, which we don't need to get super detailed about. But a lot of it didn't improve my judgment, to put it mildly. I think back to it, and I just think, why? Why did this happen when it did? It's not like I've never had videos do badly before. That's only 80% of the videos on this channel. They all fucking suck and do shit. Why did those 2 videos bother me so much, especially in a year where I also had my most successful video? And I have a few competing theories as to why that particular streak of bad luck impacted me the way it did. One friend of mine suggested that it's nice to not be speaking to an empty room, which has never really bothered me before. The largest crowd I've ever performed anything in front of was about 50 people. And I knew basically everyone in that crowd. I still know a lot of those people, actually, now, when I think about it. Another was that I was actually angry or upset about something else. And look, that's kind of like your pop psychology kind of thing. And those two videos doing badly just happened to set me off. And I don't want to get too deep into some stuff that, again, I should talk about with my therapist. But maybe a little. 2025 was not a kind year to me. And sometimes you just find something that gives you an excuse to sort of do the things that you need to do. God, that was a Starmerism right there, wasn't it? It was borderline change the things that need changing. I've got to... Right, we've got to take a drink and then I'll recalibrate. Give me a sec. Alright, let's recalibrate. My honest thought about this is I was just fed up. You know, like sometimes you just want something to succeed and it doesn't, and after a while you just look at it like, why? And that's the thing. I can't ask you, the viewers, why you do or don't click on certain things. And I hate thinking like this because it feels like I'm blaming people who have nothing to do with this. But you do look at it and wonder, what's the point? Like, look, I have 3.8k subscribers. Why? Right? Why bother if YouTube won't even do me, and you incidentally, the courtesy of showing you my videos? And I know for a fact they're not showing them to everyone. Impressions are dead on this channel. I don't know or can't know why. So what's the point of any of this? So I just decided in November to not make anything. And it was never going to be permanent. I feel an obligation to the patrons and members to at least try to put out 2 videos a month. And maybe I don't always manage it, but I do a better job than most YouTubers at keeping to their schedule. Not to sneak in an unnecessary drive-by there on anyone. I'm not calling anyone out in particular. I'm just making the point that I set a standard and I try and reach it. The other horrible thing that happened because of all this built-up pressure from how sort of cheated I felt, and to be honest, I still kind of feel, is I started to look at my own and other people's work and just hate it. And I don't like hating my work or hating other people's work because I really do enjoy so many things that people make. Okay, this recording has become a bit of a quagmire, so we get a second beer for this one. A rare second beer for me. Wow. Where will the night take me? Presumably about a few feet over there because that's where I sleep. But, well, let's see. Pour number 2 of the night. Oh no. Oh no, I've messed up. No. I should never doubt myself. That's the lesson today. I should never doubt myself. Cheers again. I did spill it a little bit. I did spill it a tiny bit. I tried to hide it, but it didn't work. It didn't work. Right. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. It's only fair that I tell you which videos of mine I came to hate in particular. And you might think it's the many videos that did shit. It wasn't, and I want to say that when I start writing the videos, I really do feel excited to write them. So it's kind of funny that the videos I came to resent were the 2 that did the best. That would be my videos on Little Britain and the Fallout TV show. And I just looked at these videos, which are much more successful than anything else I've done. And I fucking hated them for it. Which is funny, right? Ostensibly, this is a crash out that is caused by videos not getting views. And then I turn around and just sort of hate the videos that got views. And there's a couple of things that were going on here for me. One was just the question of how and why did those videos succeed? Especially the Fallout one. I actually did another video about Fallout, specifically about New Vegas, around 2 years before I had the big one, as I'll call it. The older one got like 900 views, and the big one has almost 36,000. And to be honest, the amount of effort put into both is kind of the same. Okay, the big one has a presentation style that's quite different to everything else on the channel, which, I don't know, maybe makes it worth checking out. But you have to understand that these are 2 videos on possibly the most talked about IP on this website. I think I'd struggle to name a single video essayist who hasn't at least mentioned Fallout in passing, and yet you get 2 wildly different outcomes. Why? if there's no consistency in effort versus reward versus topic, then how are you meant to navigate it, right? The other thing I felt about those two videos was they just weren't my best work. And they're not even close, by the way, to being my favorite video that I've done. If you were wondering, that video is the video I did almost a year ago about 4 Lions. And the embarrassing thing about that is, despite doing terrible compared to the 2 best videos, it's still one of the better performers on the channel. Which I guess speaks to the real frustration that boiled over. When you have all these other YouTubers in the forgotten middle, and even the big channels who also spoke about their views collapsing, it was hard to sit here, literally here, and avoid rolling my eyes. Because, at least you had your moment, right? There was something quite ugly about the feelings this brought out of me, and I think a little bit of it just came through there, right? Because something that this system produces through opacity and through the simple fact that there's only so many people watching for so many hours is a sense of competition. That's another unfashionable thing to admit, but I'm going to admit it. I'm a reasonably competitive person. I'm not going to pretend I'm not, and while my parents gave me some fantastic advice because they saw this in me, which was that the only person you should be in competition with is yourself. It's hard. It's just hard, right? There's no real deep point I want to make about that. It's just hard to do that. There's something I want to say about competition here, but first I want to admit that I do look at other people's videos on similar topics once I publish my own. This is the thing, normally I deliberately avoid them, in part because it's inevitable that I'll be influenced by them and I want to present as much of my perspective as possible, such that, accepting that there's nothing new under the sun, you get what I mean. The other reason is the one time I did this, it completely sapped my motivation to actually make the video. So if you're wondering why there's no HBO's Rome video, it's because, stupid me, I was discouraged by someone else's thing about HBO's Rome doing really well and being told when I suggested that I would do this by someone, well, these other people have made this, I don't see what the point of your thing would be. And I just sort of threw my hands up and said, fuck it then, I'm not going to make it. Which I've never admitted publicly before, I don't think, but that is why that video never ended up happening. So I look, and usually I enjoy the videos. It's interesting to see where you agree and disagree on the topic. Once I started hating those videos of mine, though, it didn't really stop there. I would see a video that was on the same topics I'd covered in the past, and just hate them. Not for the content, not for anything like that, but just because it felt like a personal slight to me. To be immodest, for a second, and I'm going to allow myself to be immodest, I watched these videos, and there was something that I started thinking that made me angrier both about my own videos that had succeeded and these other videos that all inevitably had more success than my own. They're not that much better, are they? Certainly not enough to justify in any reasonable way the gap that existed between what I made and what others make. It took me days before I could open YouTube without just wanting to throw my phone out of the window or to delete the channel. It may have been the hangover, and I will cop to that, but I did feel a bit of nausea just looking at the app and seeing videos with like 100 to 200k views, and you go to their channel and it's 22 videos and 110k subscribers. Meanwhile, I'm stuck here on whatever bullshit number I'm on after so many more videos, and you just think, why don't you just fuck off? Now, there's a set of channels which were entirely new to me that I just won't watch now, because the first time I saw them was when I was in this particular state. So again, I'm confronted with that question. Why? Why subject myself to this? What I developed was something that I hadn't really felt, not often at least, towards other people on here. It was resentment. While the recent troubles, particularly in November, feel like an intense expression of it, it feels like it was part of one big event, which began before this recent shift in the algorithm got me thinking about all of this and the question of why. I remember the moment this resentment first reared its head very clearly. I even remember the name of the YouTuber who caused this feeling. I won't name him because this isn't really about him, and from what I hear, he's a nice guy and his videos are good, not my thing necessarily, but my point is there's no beef here, so if you wanted beef, just, it's not happening. His take is seared into my mind. It was the YouTube algorithm is good at connecting high quality content with an audience, or worse to that effect, and after the obligatory eye roll had two thoughts. The first was, this is a person with, at the time, over 100,000 subscribers, now well over 500,000. And I just kind of went, of course you think that's the case. Not to be unkind, it just felt like the way you get lectured by older homeowners that things can't be that bad because they've got their house. And yeah, times are tough, but they've always been tough. You know, get good. Born at the precise time that you hit peak adulthood, right as neoliberalism runs out of road without extreme authoritarian interventions. Skill issue. I'd made myself depressed about never getting towed a flat. The other thing I immediately thought of, and bear in mind this was quite a bit before the change in the algorithm that sparked the sort of wave of creative panic. The question was, is that true, though? Just bear with me here. The way the algorithm is alleged to work is that it takes videos that YouTube thinks will keep people on the website because that's how it makes money, and delivers it to the viewer. Is there any component of that that requires quality? Now, you might think it's implicit, that something that keeps people on the platform is inherently of high quality by popular acclaim. That's a matter of taste, especially when we're talking about things made by people. Where you lose me is, do you realize how many videos are AI? Not shorts, but honest to God videos. Now, I'm not making a specific accusation because it's not important, but I've seen videos where it's clear the voiceover is AI, the images on the screen use AI, just every use of AI you can think of, it's done in these videos, and they have tons of views. So how does that fit into a worldview that the algorithm connects high quality videos with an audience? Not to go on a quick rant, but anything that uses AI is inherently of less artistic merit and less quality than anything made by a person. I would watch that video where a guy tries to cook a steak on a toilet seat using burning tissues before I watch anything AI has touched. And yes, that is a real video, and I do not recommend you watch it, but it is real and it is made by a person and it does have more merit than anything with AI. I just struggled with knowing what to say about this because fundamentally it's demotivating. I don't know, but I fell into this resentful mindset that sprang from a sense that I was in competition with everyone else, and then I sat there one night staring at my screen, not sure what to write because my brain wouldn't let me write. Part of it was an enforced break. Something in me just knew that I had to not do this for a bit. But the other part of it was I was afraid because I don't think I could have taken it continuing to get worse. And I want you to understand, it really did feel like it was all for nothing. Like, why build something that is on a foundation of sand? Like, there's allegories about this. Why bother? I don't want to diminish the people who are regulars here, and they do exist, who enjoy the videos and reliably click on everything, but it's just not enough sometimes. A part of me needs the success, and I hated those videos, the two that did really well, but also the other ones that almost broke out the same way, because why tease me with the prospect that things could change? At a certain point, it does just feel like you're being scammed. You know, that's just how it feels. And it makes you not want to make the things you enjoy anymore because of the sour taste that leaves. And I take a breath, and I sleep off the nausea, and I spend a bit of time with friends, and I do the unthinkable and realize my parents may have been right. Why spend my time looking at someone else? Especially when that sense of competition is entirely made up. And I don't just mean that in the obvious way, that in the sense that everyone has a unique appeal and therefore the contours of their audiences usually an intersection of various niches that don't necessarily make sense for them to intersect. I mean, it doesn't have to be a competition. One of the great joys of being on this platform has been that I've made a lot of friends, and I will carve out specific time to watch their videos. I may not comment on everyone. If you're a creative friend of mine, I promise you I watch your videos. And I love talking through ideas with people. I love seeing what people bring to the table and just appreciating that. And I hope that appreciation does go both ways, because this can be a lonely endeavor, which makes the opacity behind everything almost more sinister. But then if you're subjecting yourself to a capricious and opaque system, does it matter? Should you care what it wants? I'm not about to insult the ancient Mesopotamians or anything, because at least they were dealing with natural phenomena and not someone at YouTube HQ deciding to press a button that kills your video or allows it to actually be shown to people. I came this close, like this close to quitting because of something that wasn't in my control. And I want to talk about how I finally figured out how I could carry on and actually just make videos and commit myself to at least maybe one more year of this, just to see what we make. December was a bit odd too, not in the same way November was, just because I always find December and January to be weird months. Winter and early nights aren't my preferred environments, it turns out. That's why I take vitamin D. Hold on, do I have the vitamin D yet? Pretty sure that's iron. Hold on. Yeah, see, there you go, vitamin D. I take vitamin D every day because I have dark hair and dark eyes, and I, for some reason, live on a miserable island in the Atlantic Ocean. Who knows how these things happen? I felt obliged, despite this, to put something out, and before I really found the resolve to carry on, I put out that video I did on Peep Show, which I really liked doing, and you know, it did shit, but it did like a kind of normal amount of shit. It was nice to finally get something out, and it's nice, even if it doesn't do well, to just have something out there to show that you can still do it, right? Especially a video the patrons and members voted for, which is a whole other aspect of this pressure that I created for myself. For a channel of my size, as far as I can tell, I have an unusual concentration of people willing to pay me on Patreon or on here or Twitch, and I'm really grateful for all of that. It's an additional thing that gives me the freedom to fail and to experiment when I feel like I need to do it, because sometimes I do need to do this. This is me being a bad content creator, but maybe a good artist when I say this. None of that influences whether the videos get made or not. I appreciate it, like I said, but I'm not motivated by it, at least not in a way that could pull me out of the hole I found myself in. So what did get me out of the hole? What happened was I had a bunch of really nice experiences over Christmas break. I actually remember I was out on a stag do, which I know doesn't sound like me. There was a guy there who I did not agree on about a lot of things, and I tried not to be political on the stag, but sometimes these things happen. It wasn't like that kind of really bad disagreement where you're arguing about who should or shouldn't be treated like a human or whatever. It was just two people who had a few drinks and lived different lives, which was nice, and we had a great time. One of the things we got into was about the idea of what incentivizes people to be productive in a way that's useful to society at large. Now, he took the position that the biggest incentive is the prospect of accumulating wealth or capital, and basically your orthodox sort of center-right idea around this. Can you tell this guy did economics at uni? I'm sorry, that was kind of mean. I shouldn't have gone there. I didn't say this at the time because I was trying to get at something more fundamental about how this hasn't always been the case, and about the artificiality of the incentives under capitalism, like they're imposed on us by a man-made system. You know, I pay for drinks. When I have cash, I pay for drinks with a picture of Charlie Sausage Finger's face. Like, the shit isn't real, right? It's not real. What I was tempted to say was I do YouTube, which did come up, but I don't make enough for it to be that real incentive, right? Understand, if the channel suddenly popped off and I got 100k subscribers, then we would obviously be having a different conversation, because there's some chance this would become my job with that kind of momentum. For now, though, that's clearly not the answer to what incentivizes me, right? I'm not doing this for the money. Part of it is certainly acclaim. You know, I want people to say nice things about me. You should say nice things about me. Who doesn't? But the big incentive, and I realized this when I was chilling on this couch right here on New Year's Eve watching anime, and no, I will not tell you what anime I was watching, it's inspiration. That Fallout video I came to resent, I made it the way I did, in the style I did, because I was inspired by the show itself, of course, but also by all the people who have made that kind of high effort Fallout content. And I wanted to make one as an homage of sorts. I didn't expect it to do well or make me any money, which it didn't, because YouTube blocked monetization on it, go figure. I just wanted to make something from that moment of inspiration, which, you know, I did, and it did well, and I was really happy that it did really well and that it connected with so many people, and I'm really grateful that it did that. But that stag night was a lot of fun. I got back into my flat at like 4 and played video games until 5. The next day, some of us met up for a hungover brunch, which was great, and something struck me. I feel like my channel is embarrassing because it's not successful and because success is so infrequent for me. But when I told people how many subscribers I have, everyone was super impressed, and my hungover self had to kind of take it in stride and not be like, well, no, that's shit, you know, which was how I was feeling at the time. And I realized that building anything, even if it's disappointing, means something to the builder. Then I went back to Reading, my hometown. Shout out to Mr. Cod in Cemetery Junction. Please sponsor my videos. Anyway, one thing I learned is that my dad watches these videos, and we never got to talk about the Peep Show video like he wanted. But it was nice to know that my dad sees these, even if some of these videos and some of the things I say aren't for him to know. But here we are. I guess I can't stop him. It made me really happy, especially at a time where I didn't feel very supported at all. And, you know, sometimes we don't agree with our family. Things are complicated, and that's not to say things are, you know, a simple or complicated or whatever between me and my parents. But it was kind of the pick-me-up I needed to know that there was someone real out there watching it. That's, I think, a key part of what's driven so much of the feelings I've had and the broader sensation in those sort of YouTube bad videos. A fear that it's all been bullshit all along, and I'm just glad at least one real person is seeing me. It's just seeing me, that's all it is. To be seen and hopefully understood. Though, to do a quick tangent, I still think about that guy who watched my Fallout video and accused me of supporting rationing. So maybe being seen doesn't always lead to being understood, but it was still real, right? At least I hope it was. Because if an AI is coming up with that, they did an amazing impression of an American. There were all sorts of small things that happened before and during Christmas. I got recognized at a gig I was at with my accountant. The lad at the barber shop I go to told me about the channel he wants to make about Persian philosophy, which I told him I will absolutely subscribe to immediately because that sounds so interesting. I just had all these little interactions that made me realize that I do this fundamentally because I like doing it. And if I end up not liking it, or I don't like where I'm doing it, I'll change those things. But for now, I'm sticking around, and I think it'll be a good year. I have a lot of fun ideas for the next few months that I'm excited to get on with. And I hope you'll be along for the ride, because it's hard to perform to an empty room. And that, you know, that's sort of the truth of it. One last thing before I forget. I spoke a bit about that forgotten middle, and while I'm going to be around for a while, a lot of that tier of creator have been put in this extremely difficult position. So if you like someone's work on here, tell them. They may not be around as long as you'll hope. Ideally, the Opaque system will reach an equilibrium, but I don't really see it doing that, so tell them. And tell me, why not? I deserve it too, but you should tell people, you know, whether you appreciate their work or not, you should tell them. Especially if you appreciate their work, especially if you appreciate my work. Okay, look, I'm in danger of rambling because Apparently, I've become a lightweight, and I don't really understand how this has happened. But I'm gonna finish off this beer. I'm gonna thank the patrons and members, etc., and then I am going to go to bed because I'm recording this a bit later than I usually would, and also it's very cold because it is January in Nottingham. So, cheers. Alright, that's your lot. Get out. Well done, those of you who made it to the end of the video. I guess you get another picture of my cat to enjoy. So take a look at the cat who I was hanging out with over Christmas. Thank you for making it to the end of that video. It was a bit of a different one. It was a bit of sort of introspection, a bit of thoughtfulness. It's not my usual thing, and I promise this is not like a special direction we're doing on the channel or something. It's just what's happening right now. I want to thank the patrons, the top tier patrons in particular: Drone Riff, Kazi Shida, Liron, Jar Jar Muba, and Carolyn, and also the YouTube members Nada Jiwa, Katie Marshall, Roger Zugi, Ben Johnson. Absolute legends, a lot of them. If you want the videos early, etc., etc., there's all sorts of benefits. You get the idea. Check it out. It's especially important this year because I have run into some unexpected and severe rises in my expenses. And so, that's obviously inconvenient. So, it is appreciated on that front, but it's also appreciated because it gives me the freedom to just go for it sometimes. All right, everyone. With that, I'm gonna take off. I'm gonna start editing. No, I'm not starting editing. I'm going to bed. I promise I'm going to bed. Whew. Honestly, this has been a tough video. Tougher video than I thought it would be. I'm more annoyed that you can't see what shirt I'm wearing. But anyway. I am fascinated by the fact that you can't, just to prove the shirt has something on it. It is a Metallica shirt. I'm impressed by the fact that you can't see what my shirt has on it because of some bullshit. Right.